28 Singapore dollars. How would you spend 28 Singapore dollars? There's a lot of things you can buy with 28 Singapore dollars. You can buy a couple meals, good amount of Diet Cokes, pack of cigarettes if you're a smoker, a couple of drinks at the bar for the pretty girl once COVID is over. There are a lot of things you can do with 28 Singapore dollars. But Tecware seems to think that they have the answer for what to do with those exact $28 you have found laying around. Buy that brand new gaming headset. Before I start this video, if you have any questions you want to ask, follow me on Instagram, join me on Discord, linked in the description below. I answer to queries there the fastest and most commonly, and there's also a community there to help you out, so make sure you check that out.
Employment, and to be really honest, they'll do it better than you. They do it all day long.
This is the Tecware Q2, and as with most cheap products, you would expect there to be many shortcomings and many drawbacks in various areas. Now, coming in at only 28 Singapore dollars, well, at least in Singapore, this headset is extremely budget friendly. So does it buck the trend, or does it continue the disappointment of budget products? I think the Q2 might actually be the former. Starting off with the design, perhaps this is a product of it being so cheap. You get a very clean and simple look. Minimal decorations or drawings or gaming stuff. It just looks normal, and that's nice. The only logos you get are some Tecware branding and a few lines. That's about it. And honestly, that is good enough. Everything is where you expect it to be, and its layout is just normal, and that's good.
Now the design's pretty good, but the build quality is where you think Tecware with the Q2 probably cheaped out a lot. And you're right, they did. The materials are very cheap feeling. They do not inspire confidence. They definitely feel very budget oriented. It's light and it feels flimsy. There's plenty of flex. It rattles a little bit like a box of Tic Tacs. It really isn't built all that well. But take a closer look and inspect the areas of the headset where build quality matters the most, and it's nice to see that there's at least a little bit of care and concern, even though they were cutting costs. You see, if you were cutting costs by using cheaper materials, there will be a few parts of a headset that I will avoid cutting costs with because they're the most likely to fail. Those are namely moving parts and the cable. And that's what Tecware has exactly done. With the moving ratcheting boom arm of the microphone, they have used a pretty solid mechanism even though it's a cheap gaming headset. With the adjustable headband, they have used metal and a pretty solid mechanism. The only bit of metal, by the way, on the entirety of the headphone, because this is an important part that is the most likely to break because it moves all the time. And also the cable, yes, it's cheap, yes, it's fixed, but at least it's braided, so it's going to be able to withstand more torture than your average crappy unbraided headphone cable. So while they have cut costs, and while this headset does not inspire confidence when you pick it up, it at least has been done with a little bit of care and concern, a little bit of thought, and it's nice to see that they were using their brains when they were cutting costs with this little headset. So good job Tecware, because while the build quality is still abhorrent in general, at least there are little bits here and there that make you think, yeah, they do care.
Speaking of the detachable cable and other features, let's go through what the Tecware Q2 comes with. It comes with, well, a boom microphone that can swivel up and down to be more comfortable for you, or you can swivel it out of the way if you don't want to use it. And if you're not using your microphone, you can mute it with the inline switch that also has a volume rocker, something that honestly is a nice touch on such a cheap headset. The microphone itself sounds pretty excellent too. Here's a recording. Here's a simple sound test of the Tecware Q2 at normal speaking volume. It's not bad at all. People on Discord wouldn't complain about you destroying their eardrums, but it's not so good that you could win a Grammy recording a song with it, which is understandable. unless you're that new age musician, because honestly, who the hell even knows what passes for music nowadays? And honestly, Grammys suck. They're just racist and they never even award the right artists the awards. It's a joke. Like seriously, they gave Macklemore the Grammy for Best Rap Album just because he was white, frankly, over Kanye West's Best Ever Album, Kendrick Lamar's Best Ever Album, and like I think it was Drake's album. It was disrespectful and disgusting. The Grammys suck, but this mic doesn't. Frankly, that mic is honestly good enough for any Discord call, or if you're an attractive enough female streamer, it's good enough for your streams too. However, it's not bad enough to channel your inner Tyler 1, unfortunately. And some might find the cable pretty short, but that's on purpose. The short cable has a 4-pole connector, which is used with phones and laptops, portable devices that are close to you. Well, it also comes with an adapter that adapts 4-pole adapter into dual 2-pole separate mic and headphone jacks, which is something you would use with a desktop PC. And this adapter is extremely long, which will then compensate for the lack of cable length in a situation where you actually need cable length, which is a very nice, very thoughtful touch. It allows you to have the best of both worlds. A long cable when you're using it with your desktop, and a short cable when you're using it on the go with your phone or your laptop.
Now, let's move on to something else that's very important. Comfort. Comfort is pretty important in a gaming headset, isn't it? I mean, if it feels like you've got 6 knives poking on your head when you're gaming, you're going to be distracted, you're going to have a uncomfortable, unenjoyable, unfun experience when you're gaming, and nobody wants that. You're gonna be wearing your headset for hours on end because we're all addicts at heart, and we're gonna end up gaming for hours and hours on end, especially since a lot of us are stuck at home in this lockdown. Not for me because I'm in Singapore, but I know a lot of people will be in lockdown. And because you'll be gaming on hours on end, comfort is essential. Well, it's actually pretty good on the Q2. No, it does not make you feel like you're lying in a bed of roses, covered in velvet, and in a king-size mattress. It doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like you're floating in a cloud like the R70X kind of does, but it's not bad, and really not bad at all. There is generous amounts of padding, like it's really generous, really deep foam, and while the ear cups are a little bit stiff with the foam, they do soften up over time, and the headband's foam is really nice and plush. The material they used is also, well, it's cheap feeling and doesn't feel all that nice on the skin. But once you get used to it, it isn't all that bad because there is pretty good ventilation with the material that they've chosen, which means that in a hot and sweaty area of the world like Southeast Asia, this headset is going to be perfectly fine to use for long hours. So yes, it's not going to feel like you're lying in Buckingham Palace, but it's still pretty acceptable. And the clamping force is just right too, it's just not too tight. Good. Now all that is good, and all that is exciting, but how does it sound?
In all honesty, the Q2 sounds really, really good for 28 Singapore dollars with the mic. It's a headset, remember? It's actually pretty darn good. Now, I'm not saying it's analytical or crisp and super amazing, but there's enough detail to satisfy the average listener, there's enough clarity to go around, and yes, it struggles with separation, stereo separation, and having a wide soundstage, which some might argue is essential for a gaming headset, but it has enough detail to help you distinctively hear footsteps and the positions of them, enough that you can still have a good time and have a good experience. Now, it's definitely not enough to satisfy the anal audiophiles, but honestly, it's fun and it's enjoyable. I mean, it's good enough for me to enjoy my favorite songs, and yes, most of the job of that thing happening is done by the fact that these songs are my favorite to begin with, but still, at least it didn't make me suddenly dislike my favorite songs because I was listening to a $28 headset, and that's always a good sign. It's not refined, it's not classy sounding, it's not special sounding, it just sounds acceptable, and if you crank it with your favorite beats, you're going to still have a reasonably enjoyable time, which is all that matters.
Now, something that's a bit different to sound quality is also sound signature. Sound signature is not exactly the same as sound quality because sound quality talks about detail and separation and clarity and technical perfection. Sound signature just tells you what the headphone is kind of biased to when it plays music. And with this, it's extremely warm and kind of male vocal oriented, which left me kind of having a little bit of fun. Because you see, my favorite genres of music is R&B and rap, which is heavily male dominated, has a lot of 808s, bass, drums, kick drums, and male vocals. And with this headset, I actually did enjoy my favorite songs and had a pretty good time with them, which is a good thing. However, if you're someone who likes the snares and sparkly noises and the sharp kick and sharp feeling of a snare or a hi-hat, or you love female vocals, songs with like Ariana Grande where she's constantly hitting falsettos, this is gonna struggle a little bit with that because it's such a warm sounding headphone that those parts of the sound signature feels a little bit muddled. For gaming, that's perfectly fine because the bass and the lower mids is where you hear the footsteps, the explosions, the fun sound effects, like the fun buckets of sound. But if you're trying to hear music with female vocals in it, high-pitched vocals, you're trying to hear violins and high-pitched pianos and instrumentals and snares and hi-hats, you're gonna find that it's a bit muddled and underwhelming with this headset. Whether it's a killer feature, that's personal preference. For me it isn't, but for some people it definitely will be. Oh, and another thing, with male vocals and vocals in general on this headset, I find that it's extremely intimate sounding. As I said in the voiceover, the soundstage is really narrow. And I found that when I was listening to Frank Ocean or, singers where they really pour their soul into the microphone, it felt like they were singing down my throat and I could feel, a little bit uncomfortable because it just felt like it was so intimate. Now this is not necessarily a bad thing, it's just an interesting observation, and whether this makes it better than a M70X that has more open soundstage is once again personal preference. It's just that it's an interesting observation to see the vocals in this headset be so close to you. That's completely personal preference as to whether it's good or bad. For me, I don't really like it because I like separation, but for someone who feels like they want to listen to their music and feel like the artist is whispering down their ear so that they can cry with them, might be good for you. Why not? Oh, and one thing, Tecware, for the second version of Q2, could you make this microphone detachable? Because this headset is honestly not bad sounding at all. I would be willing, if I was on a budget, to use this as a headphone when I say take the bus or go to the library because it really doesn't sound all that bad. So I wanted to be able to detach this so I don't look like a dog when I'm taking public transport or something. So then, for 28 Singapore dollars, this is a truly impressive product. Like, it really does its job, but done well. And for someone who's on a tight budget, who can't afford separate mics, separate headphones, amps, and all that fancy audio gear BS that I love because I buy into snake oil, this honestly covers all the bases and is pretty much all you need for a gaming headset. Decent enough for music, decent enough for gaming, decent enough mic, decent enough comfort, decent enough all around. Tecware truly has a pretty darn good product here. The only question then is, will you be spending your chump change of 28 bucks on a Q2? That question can only be answered by you. For me, this was free, so I'm gonna give it away in a video tomorrow. So make sure you subscribe for that giveaway video announcement. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video, which will come probably next Thursday. Make sure you like and subscribe because why not, right? Because it will help this channel a lot. As you can tell, I put a lot of effort into these videos and I'm really trying to push this channel to another echelon when it comes to tech reviews. Trying to be the top gear of tech, like the good top gear, not the bad top gear that came later.